So Lovenotes, we identify as a social enterprise. What this means, I actually don't know. I can't tell you. But what I'm starting to realise is that sometimes it's easier to start with what we're not. Lovenotes isn't a thing, it's an inquiry. It's our inquiry on how would we show up if our true modus operandi, or our true way of being, was in generative mode, where all life thrives of all species. And I think it's an inquiry that will probably take us to forever, but that sounds fun to me. We operate, I feel, in kind of our own paradigm. Lovenotes is a place and a space that embodies and interweaves things like collective decision-making through a design process, and guardianship, which is our own take on shareholding and directorship. And it's woven throughout every single sphere of the enterprise. It's just part of the DNA. Quadruple bottom line consideration and reporting drives everything that Lovenotes does. And as boring as it sounds, it's led us to arriving at some thoughts and ideas that we actually never saw coming. Our quadruple bottom line is entirely and purely reflective of the vision. Our vision is for an environmentally sustainable, socially just, and really fulfilling and happy place where all people can thrive and all life can thrive. So from the top visionary ideas, right down through to the bottom line, the paradigm and every single detail and decision and consideration is designed in between really intentionally to generate positive impacts in all those areas. And it turns out that if you want to generate some awesome impacts for people and for communities, that the fourth and last measure, which we have as personal happiness and well-being, it's an invitation to all the people who are involved to sit at the decision-making table. That invitation has to always be open. We have to let them be there. Sometimes I think it can sound tiring that we so intricately design and think about everything, and we get so involved in so much detail. But it's actually really cool to realise that doing that is actually conducive to some strange paradox of exhilaration and peace all at the same time. It's taken not a huge amount of energy to gain any power from my perspective, which sounds really simple. But I start questioning what even is power, what got us here. And I think the most relevant thing to me is that it's been in the minds of myself and the people that are part of Lovenotes. It's what we all perceive and what we choose. At the end of the day, all we really had to do was start a company and get together and start doing some stuff. And I come from a background, I was brought up in my dad's print shop, or not exactly, but I spent so many weekends and hours just doing stuff, just making things happen and manifesting. It's kind of a frightening and a liberating realization to then realize that actually it's just in our minds. We exist as a limited liability company. Our lawyer would probably tell you that we are really off the charts in terms of best practice, but we make it work for ourselves. And I have chosen for us to be there. And it turns out that existing in the free market totally rocks. There's so much you can do. You've got to get your A into G, and you've got to earn your money and make your dime. And that's an awesome challenge. And I just want to point out that we are so happy to pay our taxes. I don't want to invest energy in the struggle of whether that's useful or not. We just want to do that and get on with it. Coming from community and youth development sectors in my previous work, where relationships with money were pretty negative, and even relationships with funders were pretty flawed, it's so liberating to hand out an invoice and for the person who wants to pay it to be so happy and excited to be paying it because they so appreciate the work that you're doing. I think the possibilities to work in pure collaboration are totally infinite. It's another one of those frightening and liberating realizations. In my experience with Lovenotes and the other work that I've done, collaboration or partnership and working together, it's often just the ego of our minds that stops us or that becomes the rock that we hit. You can get so deep with collaboration and all of a sudden, bam, you've hit a rock. And the only way to get beyond that is through personal transformation. Every individual has to do that and work through that for themselves. So we need really brilliant facilitation and relationship skills to do this. We need to master and completely fall in love with patience and slow growth, because we can only go as fast as the slowest person. We need to be committed to being really ready to transform ourselves as individuals. And we need to be committed to, therefore, being able to cope with our own worst nightmares, the things that really we don't want to have to deal with, or we don't like, or we disagree with. And often it's when you work through those within yourself anyway that you realize it was only in your mind. At the end of all the thinking and the theory and the consideration on how we do this, I've been to so many conferences and had so much dialogue. I have to be really honest that for me, I'm kind of tired of talking about it and I just want to do it. And that's pretty much what Lovenotes is for me. It's our expression of the manifestation of all of this understanding, and it's evolving and changing and growing each and every day. So my calling, really, and what I would love to share with you, is really, let's start manifesting. Let's start doing this and doing it more and practicing. Because the more rocks that we hit along the way with our collaborators, the more that we will transform, and the sooner that a more abundant and thrilling world can be our everyday existence. Kia ora.